So Disney might be saying that streaming is the future, but behind the scenes, apparently they're saying something very different, because Disney has apparently claimed that streaming is dead behind the scenes, while Bob Iger touts success to shareholders, according to Star Wars showrunner. And of course, that showrunner is Andor showrunner Tony Gilroy, who revealed this week that Disney and Lucasfilm told him streaming is dead during the production of the second season of his Star Wars series. The comment comes amid increasing scrutiny over the viability of Disney's streaming business and a string of underperforming Lucasfilm titles on Disney+. Now, speaking at the ATX Television Festival, Gilroy described the behind-the-scenes challenges of producing Andor Season 2 when he dropped this particular bomb. He says, I mean, for Disney, this is $650 million for 24 episodes. I never took a note, Gilroy said. We said F the Empire in the first season, and they said, can you please not do that? In season 2, they, meaning Disney and Lucasfilm, said streaming is dead. We don't have the money we had before, so we fought hard about the money, but they never cleaned anything up. That freedom comes with responsibilities. Vash, that is a huge statement from Disney to one of its creatives, that streaming is dead. We're not going to give you the money. But then, of course, they gave them the money anyway. And no, it was not $650 million per episode, guys. It's $650 million over 2 seasons, which makes Andor one of the most expensive streaming ventures. Maybe second only to the Rings of Power over at Amazon, where they dropped a bill on that. But Vash, I mean, this company clearly knows that streaming is not the success that it's trying to make it seem.
And it's so demonstrable, because this has been the albatross around the back of the entire Walt Disney Company, especially the parks, as you know, the name that park place would allude to. The effect that streaming has had on the parks division in particular has been so bad. It's really killed the experience, because every single amount of profit or revenue gets dumped right back into this streaming apparatus in order to fund products like Andor, right? The 2 seasons of Andor, a show that maybe only barely cracked the top 10 in both of those seasons that have been produced. What, $650 million? Imagine the attractions you could build for $650 million. Now this is going to go on a streaming service for the its life after production, and barely anybody's going to see it. And it's just, go ahead.
We are currently waiting to see what kind of return Andor gives, as far as, whether it pops up in the streaming top 10 originals. I think it might, just because of the way it was released with 3 episodes at a time each week. Because, I mean, basically that's games the system of the, how many minutes watched, which does not equate to success, so to speak. So they're dumping all of this in, getting no returns. I mean, the Acolyte cost what, $300 million from what we learned. And that they got nothing back on that. And it's like, where is all this money going to a service that they are saying is dead? They are telling this creative from his own mouth to God's ears that someone in Disney said to him, streaming is dead. That is the direct quote. I mean, that's insane. But what's really insane is they said streaming is dead, and they still gave him $650 million, Vash.
Yeah, that's the most amazing part about it, right? And especially towards a show that has been, I think, deeply controversial. And as Tony Gilroy actually points out in that interview, originally brought to light by IndieWire and brought marvelously by, Marvin Montenaro of That Park Place. He talks about how he wanted to test the waters and so forth, really push the boundaries of what actually could be showcased by a Disney distribution network like Disney Plus in this instance. And I mean, to spend that amount of money towards this specific show and all that the controversy surrounding it is it's just remarkable. And so when you look at the recent round of layoffs that actually happened, or when you look at how atrophied the parks experience has become, this is why.
Yeah, absolutely. So much. And this is why they're laying off hundreds of people, because they're spending $650 million. And now Theme Park Wizard just pointed out in the chat, thank you very much for pointing this out, that Andor is in the overall Nielsen chart number 5 as of last week, of course, because of the 3 episodes premiere. I'm going to look more into that and report a little bit more on that and do an analysis on thatparkplace.com in the coming week. But, that doesn't equate to money. What equates to money is how many subscribers are you bringing in? How many are you retaining? Retention is the big number there as well, because it's, like how much you bring in versus how many attenuate. That is, a big thing that I think gets ignored a lot of times on Disney Plus. How many people are canceling the service? I mean, for them to say streaming is dead to Tony Gilroy, and I don't know if that was somebody specifically from Disney or Lucasfilm, and it's all kind of the same thing at this point. But I mean, that's a pretty big statement. But then to still turn around and give him more than $500 million, that's wild.
Towards a show that, okay, all right, it's
People love it. People
tough.
do love it.
But at what cost? I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. Okay, all right, it's top 5, I guess, on streaming originals, or at least one of the charts out there. Great, that's fantastic. But again, though, we have issues with those numbers, especially with the release cadence of these streaming series, like Andor, for example, like you were saying before, 3 episodes that could alter your view minutes and so forth. Besides all that, I mean, people might be talking about Andor in some circles. Not everybody's talking about Andor. I mean, it's not like The Last of Us. All right, it's not like Game of Thrones. It's not like any of the big tentpole culture shifting shows that we've seen from Netflix or from Amazon or from any of these other outlets. And again, the entire company's resources have been pushed towards the streaming direction. And for an executive to come out there and say it's dead is insane when you think about how much has been thrown at this.
You talk about culture shifting shows, and I noticed what you mentioned there, The Last of Us and The Rings of Power. The reason those are culture shifting, the reason they're in the conversation, is because they're failures. They're massive, massive failures. The Last of Us brought in 55% less people for the season 2 finale than the season 1 finale. I mean, that is an atrocious failure on the part of Warner Brothers, HBO, and Neil Druckmann, Naughty Dog. The Rings of Power defines failure over and over again. The Wheels of Time was just canceled by Amazon. So really, the only thing that people talk about in streaming right now are the failures, because the could have been a way better Avengers ride for. Good point, Theme Park Wizard. That is a very, very good point. The national conversation around streaming is streaming failure. And Andor and Star Wars doesn't even enter into the conversation anymore the way The Acolyte did, because I think now Star Wars is expected to fail. People know that Star Wars is going to fail. Oh, a new Star Wars thing came out in Tales of the Underworld on May the 4th for this supposed Star Wars day that Disney invented. And, it didn't do anything. It did nothing. Nobody noticed it existed. There was no conversation about it. Star Wars is out of the public conversation. We're also, we're seeing a Fortnite right now over with Fortnite. They are they're experiencing the lowest the lowest player count in 2 years in Fortnite right now, because in their biggest Star Wars crossover of all time. So I mean, the big streaming successes, though, Vash, they're not talked about because those are mostly on Paramount Plus and Netflix.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going on. That's what's happening. Disney is, for how much in terms of overall resources from the entire company, for how much labor, for how many dollars that have gone towards this effort, it really hasn't amounted to either better quality content, at least on the streaming division, and for Star Wars in particular. I mean, it has been dreadful. It is really, I would say, diminished the Star Wars brand, really fractured it in a lot of ways. You have people who love Andor, you have people who hate Andor, for example, right? You have people who like Mandalorian, you have people that hate Mandalorian, you have people that like Skeleton Crew, and people that don't like Skeleton Crew. It's so wild, because on the one hand, it's like, yeah, streaming's really bad. That's a whole that's a whole can of worms itself. When you look at Star Wars in particular, this brand that they bought for $4 billion, this tentpole brand that that you see as a separate tile on Disney Plus, for example. This has really been wrecked by a lot of these bad decisions that have also wrecked their streaming division. So when you see an executive come out and say streaming's dead, there you go.
There are people that love The Acolyte, hate The Acolyte, love Skeleton Crew, hate Skeleton Crew, love Andor, hate Andor. But that pool of love and hate gets smaller with each show, it seems, because just interest in Star Wars has attenuated to such a point that it is not even a part of the cultural conversation anymore. I mean, for Fortnite, this Fortnite crossover, I had a lot of fun with it. I played, but eventually I was done with it. I unlocked Palpatine, and then I was like, I kind of want Grievous, but I don't know if I want to put time and money into that. This AI Vader that broke the internet, even that couldn't bring things up. So I don't know, man. I don't know what the future holds for streaming and for Star Wars in particular when it comes to streaming, but it ain't looking good. I mean, I can't think of anything that they've currently got cooking for streaming over at Star Wars, any shows that they currently have on the table. Everything that they've announced going forward, I think, is a film.
I think you're right. And
Ahsoka season 2.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, on the film side, I have no idea what the viability of that's going to be. If Fortnite, and this relationship that they've crafted and built for themselves, right, couldn't amount to higher player counts. Now you're talking about the lowest player count in 2 years. When you look at the strength of this franchise, I mean, apathy has really set in, and honestly, it's the Kathleen Kennedy effect, but it's also a lot of really bad decisions by a lot of people involved, not just Kathleen Kennedy, but this emphasis on streaming. We know it's diminished the quality. I think that's true. Although you do have some executives leaning on that as a crutch, but it's just all of these decisions have led us to this point and have really diminished not only the Star Wars brand, but streaming's viability and content production as a whole at the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.